My phone rang at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, and when I saw the name on the screen, my heart stopped. Jessica, my daughter, the girl I had not spoken to in 8 years. Her voice was cold when I answered, businesslike, as if she were calling a contractor instead of her father. She had seen my new Mercedes on Facebook, she said. Silver, sleek, $180,000 of German engineering that I had posted about exactly once. Then came the punch. Come to dinner tomorrow night. Bring $300,000 in cash. No hello. No how have you been, Dad. Just a demand, delivered like an invoice. She hung up before I could respond, and I sat there in my modest home office, staring at the phone, my chest tight with a mixture of grief and something darker, suspicion. I could not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica as she used to be. A little girl with pigtails, running through our backyard in Austin, chasing fireflies in the summer twilight. A teenager rolling her eyes at my dad jokes but secretly smiling. A young woman graduating from college, beaming as I pinned her Honor Society medal to her gown. That was before everything fell apart. The divorce happened 12 years ago. Jessica was 23, just starting her career in marketing. Her mother, Patricia, and I had been married for 26 years, and I thought we were happy. I was wrong. I discovered Patricia was having an affair with her tennis instructor, a man 15 years younger than her. When I confronted her, she did not apologize. She did not even deny it. Instead, she went on the offensive. She told Jessica, and everyone else who would listen, that I had abandoned them for a younger woman, that I had been unfaithful, that I was a deadbeat father who cared more about work than family. None of it was true, but Patricia was convincing. She always had been. Jessica believed her mother completely. She refused to hear my side of the story. I tried to explain, sent her letters, left voicemails, showed up at her apartment with proof of Patricia's affair. She would not look at the evidence. She screamed at me to leave her alone, said I had destroyed our family, said she never wanted to see me again, and she meant it. For 8 years, I was erased from her life. No phone calls, no visits. She returned my birthday cards, unopened. She blocked me on every social media platform except Facebook, and even there, she never acknowledged my existence. I saw her life only in glimpses, posts about promotions at work, photos of vacations to Cancun and Colorado, and 5 years ago, wedding pictures with a man I had never met, never even heard about until I saw him standing beside my daughter in a tuxedo. Those 8 years nearly broke me. I threw myself into work to avoid the pain. I owned a small electrical contracting business, just me and 4 employees, doing residential and commercial jobs around the Austin area. It was not glamorous, but it was steady. I worked 70-hour weeks, took every job that came my way, saved every penny I could. I lived in the same 1,500-square-foot house I had bought after the divorce, drove a 10-year-old pickup truck, ate dinner alone most nights in front of the television. Birthdays came and went without celebration. Holidays were the worst. Christmas morning, I would sit in my living room with a cup of coffee, looking at the box of letters I had written to Jessica over the years but never sent. Letters telling her I loved her. Letters explaining what really happened. Letters begging for a chance to make things right. 3 months ago, everything changed. A national electrical company approached me about buying my business. They wanted my client list, my reputation, my expertise. The offer was $1.8 million. I almost turned it down. The business was all I had left, but my accountant convinced me to take it. "You are 67 years old, Boris," he said. "You have no retirement plan. This is your chance." So I sold. For the first time in my life, I had real money in the bank. I did not go crazy with it. I paid off my mortgage. I set aside money for retirement. I made a few small donations to charities, but I also bought the Mercedes. It was not about showing off. It was about proving to myself that I had value, that my years of hard work had meant something. I posted one picture of it on Facebook with a simple caption. New chapter. That was it. Nah bragging. Nah details. Within 24 hours, Jessica called. Now, sitting in my dark living room at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, I knew that call had nothing to do with love or reconciliation. It had everything to do with money. My daughter did not want me. She wanted my bank account. At 6 in the morning, I called Martin. He had been my best friend since high school, a retired police detective who had spent 30 years with the Austin Police Department. If anyone could give me straight advice, it was Martin. He answered on the second ring, his voice gravelly from sleep. "Boris, it is 6 in the morning. This better be good. I told him everything. The phone call, the demand for $300,000, the 8 years of silence. When I finished, Martin was quiet for a long moment. Boris, he finally said, people who cut you out of their lives for years do not suddenly want you back. They want something, and what they want is always going to cost you. I know, I said. Are you going to go? I have to, I said. She is still my daughter. Martin sighed. Then let me do some digging first. Give me her married name and address. I will see what I can find out. I gave him the information. Jessica Hollister, Willow Heights subdivision. One of those new developments on the north side of town where the houses started at $500,000. Give me until this afternoon, Martin said. Do not go anywhere until I call you back. Martin called me at 2 in the afternoon. His voice was tight, controlled. That tone he used when he was about to deliver bad news. Boris, sit down, he said. I am already sitting, I replied. Jessica married a guy named Craig Hollister 5 years ago. Ring a bell? No, I said. I did not even know she was dating anyone until I saw the wedding pictures on Facebook. Well, Craig has a record. Fraud. Embezzlement. He got probation on a plea deal about 7 years ago. Since then, he has been running a financial consulting business that smells dirty from a mile away. What kind of consulting? I asked. The kind where he takes money from people who do not know any better and makes it disappear. Martin paused. I dug deeper, Boris. They live in a 6-bedroom house worth $550,000. Both drive luxury cars. Their social media is full of trips to Europe, fancy restaurants, designer clothes. But here is the thing. They are drowning in debt. 3 mortgages on the house. Credit cards maxed out. Car loans overdue. And Craig is being investigated by the SEC for running a pump and dump stock scheme. He is about to get indicted. My stomach turned. So they need money. They need a lot of money, Martin said. And they think you are their way out. I pressed my hand to my forehead. This is worse than I thought. It gets worse, Martin continued. I called a buddy who works financial crimes. Word on the street is that Craig owes money to some very bad people. Not banks, not credit card companies. Loan sharks. The kind connected to organized crime. If he does not pay up soon, things are going to get ugly. How much does he owe? I asked. Around $300,000, Martin said. I felt like I had been punched. That is exactly what Jessica asked me to bring. Not a coincidence, Boris. They are using you. Your daughter knows you sold your business. She knows you have money. And she and her husband are desperate enough to shake you down for it. I sat there, staring at the wall. My daughter, my little girl, reduced to this. What are you going to do? Martin asked. I thought about it. A part of me wanted to cancel, to never see Jessica again, to let her face the consequences of her choices. But another part of me, the part that was still a father, could not do it. I am going, I said. Boris, Martin started. But I am not bringing $300,000, I continued. I will bring $50,000, enough to see how they react, enough to figure out what is really going on. That is still a lot of money to walk into a trap with, Martin said. I know. That is why I need your help. Martin was quiet for a moment. What do you need? I need a recording device. Something small. And I need you nearby when I go to that dinner. If things go south, I want someone who knows where I am. You think it could get dangerous? I think desperate people do desperate things, I said. And if Craig owes money to the kind of people you are describing, then yes, it could get very dangerous. Martin agreed. He came to my house at 4 that afternoon with a tiny recording device that clipped inside my jacket pocket. It would capture audio within a 20-foot radius. He also gave me a phone number. This is my cell. Keep your phone in your pocket. If you feel threatened, text me the word red. I will be parked 3 blocks away. I can be there in under a minute. Thank you, Martin, I said. He gripped my shoulder. Be careful, Boris. Family or not, these people might hurt you. At 6:15 that evening, I got into my Mercedes and started the drive to Willow Heights. The $50,000 was in a thick envelope inside my jacket. The recording device was active. My phone was in my pants pocket. As I drove through the evening traffic, I tried to imagine what I would say to Jessica. Would I confront her? Would I pretend not to know about Craig's criminal past? Would I even recognize my own daughter after 8 years? I was 10 minutes from her house when I noticed the black SUV. It appeared behind me on the highway, 3 cars back. When I took the exit for Willow Heights, it took the same exit. When I turned onto Jessica's street, Oak Meadow Drive, the SUV turned as well. I parked in front of her house, a sprawling brick and stone two-story with a manicured lawn and tall columns flanking the front door. The SUV parked 3 houses down. I sat in my car, watching the SUV in my rearview mirror. The windows were tinted. I could not see who was inside. My pulse quickened. I pulled out my phone and texted Martin. Black SUV following me. Parked 3 houses down. His reply came immediately. I see it. Stay alert. I took a deep breath, grabbed the envelope, and walked to Jessica's front door. Jessica answered the door before I could knock. She looked different. Older, thinner, her face carefully made up, her blonde hair styled in waves. She wore an expensive-looking dress and heels. She did not smile when she saw me. "Hi, Dad," she said flatly. "Hi, Jenny," I replied, using the nickname I had called her as a child. She flinched slightly at the name but said nothing. She stepped aside, and I walked into a house that looked like something from a magazine. Marble floors, high ceilings, a chandelier hanging in the entryway. Everything was pristine, impersonal, like a showroom instead of a home. "Craig is in the dining room," Jessica said, leading me through the house. We passed a living room with white furniture and abstract art on the walls. I saw 2 children, a boy and a girl, playing quietly with tablets on the couch. They looked up as we walked by. "Those are Emma and Dylan," Jessica said without stopping. "My grandchildren. I had never met them, never even seen pictures, except in passing on social media." The boy looked about 6, the girl about 4. They stared at me with curious eyes. "Can I say hello?" I asked. "Not now," Jessica said quickly. "They need to go upstairs soon anyway. Adults need to talk." We entered the dining room, and Craig stood to greet me. He was tall, good-looking in a slick way, with styled hair and an expensive watch. His handshake was firm, too firm, the kind meant to assert dominance. "Boris, so great to finally meet you," he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Jessica has told me so much about you." I doubted that, but I nodded politely. "Nice to meet you too, Craig. Please, sit, he said, gesturing to the dining table. It was set with fine china and crystal glasses. The food was clearly catered. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, some kind of fancy potato dish. A bottle of expensive wine sat open on the table. Jessica sat across from me. Craig sat at the head of the table. Almost immediately, Jessica called upstairs. "Emma, Dylan, time for bed." "But Mom," the boy whined. "Now, Dylan." The children trudged upstairs, and I heard a door close. Then it was just the 3 of us. We ate in uncomfortable silence for the first few minutes. Craig made small talk about the weather, about the neighborhood, about his business. I gave short answers, watching them both carefully. Jessica barely looked at me. She pushed food around her plate, her movements tense. After the main course, Craig leaned back in his chair and smiled. "So, Boris, Jessica tells me you recently sold your business. Congratulations. That must have been quite a payday." "Here it comes," I thought. "It was decent," I said carefully. "I am in finance myself," Craig continued. "Financial consulting. I help people grow their wealth, make smart investments. These days, the market is full of opportunities if you know where to look." "I am sure it is," I said. "In fact, Jessica and I are currently involved in a major investment opportunity. High return, low risk, but it requires capital. Significant capital." "How much capital?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Craig glanced at Jessica, then back at me. $300,000. We need it by Friday or we lose the opportunity." Jessica finally spoke, her voice tight. "Dad, I know we have not been close, but you owe me. You were not there when I needed you growing up. You left us. You chose your own life over being a father." I felt anger rising in my chest. "Jenny, that is not what happened." "Do not call me that," she snapped. "And yes, it is what happened. Mom told me everything." "Your mother lied to you," I said firmly. "She had an affair. She destroyed our marriage. I tried to tell you the truth, but you would not listen." Craig held up his hand. "Let us not rehash old family drama. We are all adults here. The question is simple, Boris. Are you going to help us or not?" I looked at him, then at Jessica. "I did not bring $300,000, I said. Craig's expression hardened instantly. "What did you bring?" "I brought $50,000, I said, "to help with immediate expenses. But I need to know what this money is really for. Investment opportunity sounds like a cover story." Craig's jaw tightened. "How much did you bring?" "I told you. $50,000. He leaned forward. "We need cash, Boris. Not a check. Not a promise. Cash. I have it with me, I said, touching my jacket. But I am not handing over $50,000 without understanding what I am funding. Jessica's eyes flashed. You want understanding? Fine. We are in debt, Dad. Deep debt. The house, the cars, everything. Craig made some bad investments. We need money to cover our losses before the bank forecloses. At least that was closer to the truth, though I suspected it was still only part of it. I am sorry you are struggling, I said. But $300,000 is a lot of money. I need time to think about this. Craig stood abruptly. We do not have time. We need the money now. I stood as well. Then I will write you a check for $50,000. You can deposit it tomorrow. We need cash, Craig repeated, his voice rising. Why? I asked. Why does it have to be cash? Before Craig could answer, the doorbell rang. Jessica and Craig exchanged a look. Craig walked to the door and opened it. Two men walked in, both wearing dark suits. They were large, muscular, the kind of men who made their living through intimidation. Boris, Craig said, returning to the dining room, these are my business partners, Marcus and Tony. The men did not offer to shake hands. They stood behind Craig, arms crossed, staring at me. My pulse quickened. I realized this had been planned. This was not a family dinner. This was a shakedown. Marcus, the taller of the two, spoke first. Boris, we understand you sold your business for $1.8 million. We know you have the money. Craig here needs $300,000 by Friday. You are going to help him get it. I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. These were not just Craig's business partners. These were the people Craig owed money to. Or they were working for those people. I need to leave, I said, moving toward the door. Marcus stepped in front of me, blocking my path. No one is leaving until we have an agreement. I looked at Jessica. She was staring at the floor, her face pale. She looked uncomfortable but said nothing to defend me. I was trapped in my daughter's house with dangerous men who wanted my money. Craig pulled out his phone. Let me make this simple, Boris. You are going to transfer $400,000 to an account I control. Not 300, 400. We need the extra to cover other debts. I am not doing that, I said. Tony grabbed my arm roughly. Yes, you are. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Martin. I saw them enter. Are you okay? Marcus noticed. Who is that? Who is texting you? My neighbor. I lied. I told him I would help him with his fence today. He is checking in. Craig's eyes narrowed. Is someone watching this house? Did you tell someone you were coming here? I shrugged. I am 67 years old visiting my daughter. Of course I told someone where I was going. The criminals exchanged nervous glances. Marcus swore under his breath. Craig paced the room, running his hand through his hair. Who did you tell? Craig demanded. A friend, I said. A retired cop. If I do not call him soon, he is going to come looking for me. That was a risk, but I hoped it would buy me time. Craig and Marcus huddled together, whispering urgently. Tony kept his grip on my arm. Jessica stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Finally, Craig turned back to me. Fine. Here is what is going to happen. You are staying here tonight. You are going to call your friend and tell him you decided to stay over and catch up with your daughter. Tomorrow morning, we are all going to your bank. You are going to withdraw the money. If you try anything, if you alert anyone, your friend Martin dies. Then you die. Understood? I stared at him. You are holding me hostage. We are protecting an investment, Marcus said coldly. They took my phone. Craig forced me to call Martin on speaker. Martin answered immediately. Boris, where are you? I am fine, Martin, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. I decided to stay the night at Jessica's. We have a lot to catch up on. I will call you tomorrow. There was a pause. Martin knew something was wrong. He could hear it in my voice. Are you sure everything is okay? Yes, I am sure. Talk to you tomorrow. Craig grabbed the phone and ended the call. Then he led me upstairs to a guest bedroom. Marcus followed. Get some sleep, Boris, Craig said. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Marcus stood by the door as Craig left. Then he looked at me. If you try to leave, if you make a sound, I will hurt you. Clear? I nodded. Marcus left and locked the door from the outside. I sat on the bed in the dark, my heart pounding. I had been kidnapped by my own daughter's family. I did not sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the sounds of the house. Voices arguing downstairs. Jessica's voice, high and strained. Craig's voice, angry and defensive. I could not make out the words, but I could feel the tension. At some point, the arguing stopped. The house fell silent. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I had gotten here. 8 years of silence, and this was the reunion. My daughter had sold me out to criminals. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a soft knock on the door. It unlocked, and Jessica slipped inside. She closed the door behind her and stood there in the darkness, her arms wrapped around herself. "Dad," she whispered. I sat up. "What do you want, Jenny?" She flinched again at the nickname. "I just wanted to say I am sorry. This was not supposed to happen like this." "Then how was it supposed to happen?" I asked, my voice harder than I intended. "You were going to sweet-talk me into giving you $300,000? Make me feel guilty enough to hand it over?" She wiped her eyes. "Craig said it would be easy. He said you would just give us the money. And when I did not, you let him call in his thugs to threaten me." "I did not know they were coming," she said. "But you did not stop them," I replied. "You stood there and let them turn me into a hostage." Jessica started to cry. "I am scared, Dad. Craig owes money to terrible people. If he does not pay them by Friday, they are going to kill him. Maybe kill me and the kids too." "Then you go to the police," I said. "You get protection. You do not rob your father." "It is not robbery," she said weakly. "It is a loan. A loan I did not agree to, forced at gunpoint." "That is robbery, Jenny," she sobbed quietly. "I did not know what else to do." "You could have called me years ago," I said. "You could have asked for help before it got this bad. You could have listened to me, instead of believing your mother's lies." She said nothing. I softened slightly. "Jenny, if you really need help, I will help you. But not like this. Not by being extorted." "It is too late," she whispered. "Craig is not going to let you go without the money. And Marcus and Tony, they work for the people Craig owes. If we do not pay, we are all dead." "Then we figure something out together," I said. "But first you have to choose. Are you with me or with them?" She looked at me, her face torn. Then she shook her head. "I cannot choose, Dad. I am sorry." She left the room and locked the door again. I lay back down, my heart aching. My daughter was lost. Maybe she always had been. At 6 in the morning, Craig opened the door. He looked like he had not slept either. His hair was messy, his eyes red. "Time to go," he said. I stood and followed him downstairs. Marcus and Tony were waiting by the front door. Jessica was in the kitchen, making coffee, her movements mechanical. The children were still asleep upstairs. Craig handed me a jacket. "Put this on. We are going to your bank. You, me, Marcus, and Tony. Jessica stays here with the kids." Jessica looked up, her eyes meeting mine. She looked terrified, but she still said nothing. "Here is how this works," Craig continued. "You and Marcus will ride in your Mercedes. Tony and I will follow in my car. We will go to your bank. You will ask to withdraw $400,000 in cash. You will act normal. If you say anything to anyone, if you try to signal for help, Martin dies. We have people watching his house right now. One phone call and he is gone. Understand?" I looked at Marcus. He pulled back his jacket slightly, revealing a gun tucked into his waistband. "I understand," I said quietly. "Good," Craig said. "Let us go." Jessica walked over to me as we headed to the door. Her eyes were wet. "Dad," she started. "Do not," I said. "Just do not." She stepped back, hugging herself. We walked outside into the cool morning air. The sun was just starting to rise, casting long shadows across the lawn. I got into my Mercedes with Marcus in the passenger seat. Craig and Tony got into Craig's black BMW. We pulled out of the driveway in a convoy, heading toward downtown Austin. As we drove, Marcus kept his hand near his gun. "You are going to do exactly what Craig said. No games, no tricks. Just get the money and hand it over." "And then what?" I asked. "You let me go?" Marcus smiled coldly. "Sure, we let you go." I did not believe him. People like Marcus did not leave witnesses. We arrived at First National Bank at 8:55, 5 minutes before it opened. There were already a few people waiting outside. Marcus and I got out of the Mercedes. Craig and Tony parked nearby and walked over, pretending to be separate customers. At 9 o'clock, the bank doors opened. We walked inside. Marcus stayed close to me, his hand in his jacket pocket, fingers on the gun. I could feel the hard metal pressing against my side through the fabric. I approached the teller, a young woman named Sarah, who I had seen a few times before. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to make a large withdrawal. Can I speak to Susan?" Susan was my personal banker. I had worked with her for 15 years. She knew me, knew my habits. If anyone would notice something was wrong, it would be Susan. Sarah picked up the phone and called Susan's office. A minute later, Susan emerged. She was in her 50s, professional, with kind eyes behind her glasses. "Boris, good morning," she said with a smile. "What can I do for you?" "I need to withdraw some money," I said. "A substantial amount." "How much?" $400,000. In cash. Susan's smile faltered. She glanced at Marcus, then back at me. "Boris, that is highly unusual. Are you sure everything is all right?" Marcus tightened his grip on the gun. I could feel the pressure increasing. "Everything is fine," I said, but my voice cracked slightly. Susan studied me. She had known me for years. She could see the sweat on my forehead, the tension in my shoulders. "Mr. Boris," she said carefully, "why do not we step into my office and discuss this?" Marcus started to object, but Susan held up her hand. "Sir, I am sorry, but bank policy requires that withdrawals over $100,000 be approved by a manager. I need to speak with Mr. Boris privately." Marcus looked at Craig, who had positioned himself near the entrance. Craig gave a slight nod. Marcus stepped back reluctantly. "I will be right here," Marcus said quietly. "Do not try anything stupid." I followed Susan into her small office. She closed the door and sat down behind her desk, gesturing for me to sit across from her. "Boris," she said quietly, "in 30 years of banking, I have never seen you this nervous. What is really going on?" This was my chance, my one opportunity to get help. But if I said anything, if Susan called the police, Marcus might start shooting. Craig and Tony were armed. There were innocent people in the lobby. This could turn into a massacre. But if I did nothing, I would be dead anyway. They would take my money and kill me to eliminate the witness. I made a decision. "Susan," I whispered, leaning forward, "I am being forced to withdraw this money at gunpoint. There are 3 armed men in your bank right now. One is standing just outside your office. If I do not give them the money, they will kill me. And they might kill other people too." Susan's face went pale, but she stayed calm. She reached under her desk slowly, carefully, and pressed a button. A silent alarm. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "I understand. We have a protocol for this." She stood and opened the door slightly. "Mr. Boris," she said loudly, "for the benefit of Marcus and the others, I can process this withdrawal, but it will take about 20 minutes to count and prepare that amount of cash. Is that acceptable?" "Yes," I said. "That is fine." We walked back into the lobby together. Susan addressed Marcus. "Sir, if you would like to have a seat, this will take a little while." Marcus nodded, his eyes suspicious. We sat down in the waiting area. Craig and Tony pretended to fill out deposit slips, but they were watching everything. The minutes crawled by. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. I could see Marcus getting increasingly nervous. He kept checking his watch, looking toward the door. At 15 minutes, I saw movement outside. Police cars, unmarked, pulling up discreetly. Officers in plain clothes entering the bank, pretending to be customers. Marcus saw them too. He stood abruptly. "Something is wrong." "What?" Craig asked, walking over. "Cops," Marcus hissed. "This is a setup." Marcus reached for his gun. At that moment, one of the plainclothes officers spoke into his radio, and Marcus knew for sure. "Everyone, get down," Marcus shouted, pulling his gun and grabbing me. Police officers revealed themselves, weapons drawn. "Drop your weapons, now." Craig and Tony pulled their guns as well. Customers screamed and dropped to the floor. Chaos erupted. Marcus dragged me in front of him, using me as a shield. He pressed the gun to my head. "We are walking out of here, or the old man dies." A standoff. My heart hammered in my chest. I could feel the cold metal of the gun against my temple. Craig was screaming at Tony. "I told you this was a bad idea. I told you." Tony tried to run for the door. 2 officers tackled him to the ground. Tony's gun clattered across the floor. Officers swarmed him, cuffing his hands behind his back. Craig dropped his gun and raised his hands. "I give up. I give up." But Marcus still had me. He backed toward the exit, dragging me with him. Officers surrounded us, but no one could take a shot without risking hitting me. "Let him go, Marcus," an officer shouted. "There is no way out." Then I heard a voice I recognized. "Martin." "Let him go, Marcus." I turned my head slightly. Martin stood near the entrance, his own weapon drawn. He must have been coordinating with the police outside. Marcus hesitated, his grip on me loosening slightly. "It is over," Martin said. "You are surrounded. Let Boris go, and no one else gets hurt. For a moment, I thought Marcus might pull the trigger anyway. But then, slowly, he released me and dropped the gun. Officers rushed forward, tackling him to the ground, cuffing him. I stumbled away, my legs shaking. Martin caught me before I fell. "You all right, Boris?" I could not speak. I just nodded. Police officers secured Craig, Marcus, and Tony. Customers were escorted outside. Susan emerged from her office, pale but unharmed. A detective approached me. "Sir, I need to get your statement. Can you tell me who else was involved in this?" I hesitated. I knew what he was asking. "Jessica. My daughter." "My daughter," I said quietly. "Jessica Hollister. She set this up. She is at her house with her children right now." The detective nodded and spoke into his radio. "Dispatch. Send units to the Hollister residence." I sat down on a bench in the lobby, my hands trembling. Martin sat beside me. "You did good, Boris. You saved your own life." I did not feel good. I felt destroyed. I had just turned in my own daughter. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom at the Travis County Justice Center. The room was cold, sterile, filled with lawyers and officers and people whose lives had been torn apart by crime. Craig, Marcus, and Tony sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed. At a separate table sat Jessica, dressed in a simple gray suit, her hair pulled back, her face hollow. I was there to testify. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Miss Brennan, had explained that my testimony was crucial. Without it, the defense might argue that I had willingly participated in some kind of business deal gone wrong. My words would seal their fates. Marcus and Tony faced federal charges: kidnapping, armed robbery, attempted murder. They were looking at 20 to 30 years each. Craig faced similar charges, plus fraud and extortion. His lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recording device Martin had given me had captured everything. Jessica's case was more complicated. Her lawyer, a public defender named Amy Rodriguez, was arguing that Jessica had been coerced by Craig, that she was a victim too. But the recording device had captured her voice as well. She knew about the plan. She had participated willingly. The bailiff called my name. I stood and walked to the witness stand, my legs unsteady. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Miss Brennan approached me with a kind but professional expression. "Mr. Boris, can you describe your relationship with the defendant, Jessica Hollister?" "She is my daughter," I said. "And when was the last time you spoke to her before the incident in question?" 8 years ago, I said, after her mother and I divorced. Miss Brennan led me through the events: the phone call, the demand for money, the dinner, the arrival of Marcus and Tony, the night I spent locked in the guest room, the trip to the bank. "And at any point," I asked, "did your daughter attempt to help you or stop what was happening?" I looked at Jessica. She was staring at the table, tears running down her face. "No," I said quietly. "She did nothing to help me." Miss Brennan showed the jury the transcript of the recording. It included Jessica's voice saying, "You owe me, Dad. You were not there for me growing up." "Did you owe your daughter money, Mr. Boris?" "No," I said. "Did you abandon her growing up?" "No," I said. "Her mother lied to her about what happened in our marriage. I tried to maintain a relationship, but Jessica refused to see me." The defense attorney, Miss Rodriguez, cross-examined me. She tried to paint Jessica as a frightened wife caught in her husband's schemes. But the evidence was clear. Jessica had made the phone call. Jessica had invited me to dinner. Jessica had known what Craig was planning. After 2 hours of testimony, I was excused. I walked out of the courtroom and sat on a bench in the hallway. Martin found me there. "You did what you had to do," he said. "I know," I replied, "but it does not make it any easier." 3 days later, the verdicts came in. Marcus and Tony were convicted on all counts. Craig was convicted on all counts. Jessica was convicted of conspiracy, to commit robbery, and accessory to kidnapping. She faced up to 10 years in prison. But before sentencing, something unexpected happened. Miss Brennan called me into her office. "Mr. Boris," she said, "I wanted to speak with you before the sentencing hearing." "What about?" I asked. "Your daughter. Her lawyer has approached me about a plea deal. If you agree not to pursue civil damages, and if you provide a statement to the court asking for leniency, the judge might reduce her sentence significantly, possibly probation instead of prison time." I stared at her. "After everything she did?" "She has 2 young children," Miss Brennan said. "Emma and Dylan. They would go into foster care if their mother goes to prison. Their father is going away for 15 years minimum. Those kids would have no one." I thought about Emma and Dylan. I had seen them only once, briefly, playing on the couch with their tablets. They were innocent in all of this. What would the deal look like? I asked. Jessica pleads guilty to lesser charges. She gets 5 years probation, house arrest for the first year, mandatory therapy, and parenting classes. She has to divorce Craig, and you would help provide financial support for the children. I would have to give them money? After they tried to rob me? Not them. The children. For food, clothing, education. You would be helping your grandchildren, not the people who hurt you. I sat there, thinking. A part of me wanted to see Jessica punished to the fullest extent of the law. She had betrayed me, used me, put my life in danger. But another part of me, the part that was still a father and now a grandfather, could not stomach the idea of those 2 children suffering for their parents' mistakes. I will do it, I said finally, but on one condition. What is that? Jessica has to hear the truth, all of it. I want to sit down with her, face to face, and tell her what really happened in my marriage to her mother. No lawyers, no interruptions, just the 2 of us. If she agrees to that, I will ask the judge for leniency. Miss Brennan nodded. I will arrange it. 2 days later, I sat across from Jessica in a small meeting room at the county jail. She looked thin, exhausted, broken. She would not meet my eyes. Jenny, I said softly. She looked up, her eyes red. I am going to tell you something, and I need you to listen. Really listen. For once in your life, hear me. She nodded slightly. I told her everything. About Patricia's affair. About how I had discovered it. About the evidence I had tried to show her years ago that she had refused to look at. About the lies Patricia had spread. About the 8 years I had spent alone, working myself to exhaustion, trying to fill the void left by losing my daughter. Your mother destroyed our family, Jenny. Not me. And then she poisoned you against me so thoroughly that you could not see the truth even when it was right in front of you. Jessica was crying openly now. I thought you left us, she whispered. Mom said you did not love us anymore. I never stopped loving you, I said. Not for 1 second. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Jessica spoke. I am so sorry, Dad. I ruined everything. Yes, I said. You did. But I am going to help you anyway. Not because you deserve it, but because Emma and Dylan deserve a chance at a better life than the one you and Craig have given them. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me yet, I said. You are going to work for this. You are going to get clean, get honest, get help, and you are going to be a real mother to those kids. If you slip up even once, I am done. Understand? I understand, she said. At the sentencing hearing, I stood before the judge and asked for leniency. I explained that while I had been deeply hurt by my daughter's actions, I believed she deserved a chance at redemption for the sake of her children. The judge agreed to the plea deal. Jessica received 5 years probation, 1 year of house arrest, mandatory counseling, and a requirement to divorce Craig within 6 months. Craig, Marcus, and Tony were not so fortunate. Craig was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Marcus and Tony each received 25 years. 3 months after the trial, I drove to Jessica's new apartment. She had lost the house in Willow Heights, of course. The bank had foreclosed. Now, she lived in a modest, 2-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood on the south side of Austin. The building was old, but clean. There was a small playground out front where a few children were playing. I parked and walked up to the 2nd floor. Jessica opened the door before I knocked. She looked different. Her hair was natural, no longer perfectly styled. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup. She looked younger somehow, more like the daughter I remembered. Hi, Dad, she said softly. Hi, Jenny. She let me inside. The apartment was small, but tidy. There were toys on the floor, children's drawings on the refrigerator. Emma and Dylan were sitting at the kitchen table, coloring. Kids, Jessica said. This is your grandfather. Emma looked up with wide eyes. Hi, Grandpa. My heart clenched. Hi, Emma. Dylan was more reserved. He gave me a small wave but said nothing. I brought something for you, I said, pulling out a small bag. Inside were 2 books, one about dinosaurs for Dylan and one about butterflies for Emma. Emma squealed with delight. Thank you, Grandpa. Dylan took his book carefully. Thank you, he said quietly. Jessica made coffee, and we sat at the kitchen table while the kids colored and looked at their new books. It was awkward at first. Neither of us knew quite what to say. How are you managing? I asked. It is hard, Jessica admitted. I am working 2 jobs. waitressing during the day and doing data entry from home at night. The money you are providing for the kids helps with rent and food. I do not know what I would do without it. How is therapy going? It is helping, she said. I am starting to see how messed up everything was. How I let Craig control me. How I believed Mom's lies, because it was easier than facing the truth. I nodded. That takes courage to admit. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I destroyed everything, Dad. The house, the marriage, my relationship with you. I was so focused on keeping up appearances, on living this fake perfect life, that I lost sight of what actually mattered. What matters now is what you do next, I said. You cannot change the past, but you can build a better future for Emma and Dylan. Over the following weeks, I started visiting regularly. At first, it was just for an hour or two on weekends. I would bring groceries, help fix things around the apartment, spend time with the kids. Dylan slowly warmed up to me. He loved building things, so I brought him a set of tools and taught him how to fix a wobbly chair, how to hang a picture frame, simple things my father had taught me when I was his age. Emma was more open. She loved stories, so I would read to her before bedtime, fairy tales and adventures. She would curl up next to me on the couch, her small hand holding mine, and listen with rapt attention. Jessica watched these moments with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. One evening, after the kids were in bed, she said to me, "They have never had this. A grandfather who cares. Family who shows up. They should have had it all along," I said. "But we cannot go back. We can only move forward." "I know," she said. "And I am grateful you are giving me this chance." As months passed, something shifted between us. The anger I had carried for so many years began to ease. Not disappear, but soften. I started to see Jessica, not just as the daughter who betrayed me, but as a woman who had been manipulated, who had made terrible choices, and who was now trying desperately to make things right. One Saturday afternoon, I took Dylan to a hardware store. He was fascinated by all the tools, the rows of screws and nails, the smell of sawdust. I bought him a small toolbox of his own, and his face lit up. "Thank you, Grandpa," he said. "You are welcome, buddy. Maybe one day you will build something amazing." As we drove back to the apartment, Dylan looked at me. "Grandpa, why did not we meet you before?" It was a question I had been dreading. "Because your mom and I had a disagreement," I said carefully. "Sometimes families have problems, and people stop talking to each other. But we are fixing that now." "I am glad," Dylan said. "I like having a grandpa." "I am glad too," I said, my throat tight. That evening, after dinner, Jessica pulled me aside. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I talked to Mom yesterday." She called me. I stiffened. What did she want? She wanted to know if you and I were talking again. She heard about the trial, about what happened. She was upset. Upset that you got caught? Or upset that I am back in your life? Jessica looked down. Both, I think. She tried to tell me that you were manipulating me, that you were only helping me to control me. And what did you say? Jessica met my eyes. I told her she was wrong. I told her I had finally seen through her lies. And I told her I did not want to hear from her again unless she was ready to apologize to both of us. I was stunned. "You did that?" She nodded. "I should have done it years ago." I hugged her then, the first real hug we had shared in over a decade. She cried against my shoulder, and I held her the way I used to when she was a little girl with a scraped knee or a broken toy. "I am so sorry, Dad," she whispered. "For all of it." "I know," I said. "I forgive you. It was not perfect. We still had hard days. Days when the weight of what had happened felt too heavy. Days when old resentments surfaced. But slowly, we were building something new. Not the father-daughter relationship we once had, but something different, something honest. 6 months after the trial, Jessica completed her house arrest. She was allowed to leave the apartment for work and approved activities. She started taking Emma and Dylan to the park regularly, to the library, to free community events. I often joined them. We would spread a blanket on the grass and have picnics. Simple moments that felt like treasures. One Sunday, as we watched Emma and Dylan play on the swings, Jessica said, "Do you think they will be okay? Your kids?" "Yeah, I think they will be more than okay," I said. "They have a mother who is fighting to give them a better life. They have a grandfather who loves them. They have a chance." Jessica smiled sadly. "I wish I had given them more. A stable home. 2 parents. The life I thought I was building." "The life you thought you were building was a lie," I said gently. "This, right here, is real, and real is always better than perfect. A year after the trial, Jessica invited me to dinner at her apartment. It was nothing fancy: spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad. The kids helped her cook, and the kitchen was a mess of flour and tomato sauce. But it felt warm. It felt like home. We sat around the small kitchen table, the four of us, and Emma said grace. "Thank you for this food, and for Grandpa, and for Mommy, and for Dylan. Amen." "Amen," we echoed. As we ate, Dylan told me about a birdhouse he was building at school. Emma showed me a drawing she had made of our family. Stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sundae. Jessica watched us with tears in her eyes, but they were good tears this time. After dinner, Jessica asked the kids to play in their room for a bit. She wanted to talk to me alone. We sat on the couch, the same couch where I had read bedtime stories to Emma, and Jessica turned to me. "Dad, I have been thinking a lot about everything that happened. About the trial, about what you did for me." "I did what any father would do," I said. "No," she said firmly. "Most fathers would have walked away. Most fathers would have let me go to prison and never looked back. But you saved me. You saved my kids, even after I tried to rob you. Even after I put your life in danger. You are my daughter," I said simply. "That never changed." She took a deep breath. "I want to understand something. Why did you come to that dinner? You knew something was wrong. You knew I only wanted money. So why did you come?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Because I had to know," I said finally. "I had to know if there was any part of my little girl left inside you. And because I wanted to bring you something." Jessica looked confused. "You did bring something. $50,000. "No," I said. "I brought something more valuable than money. I brought the truth. And I brought justice." That was my surprise. Jessica stared at me. "What do you mean?" "I came to that dinner knowing it might be dangerous," I explained. "But I also came prepared. I wore a recording device. I told Martin where I would be. I withdrew just enough cash to see how you and Craig would react. My surprise was not money, Jenny. My surprise was that I refused to be a victim. I refused to let you and Craig destroy me the way you had tried to destroy yourselves." Jessica's eyes widened. "You planned it?" "Not all of it," I said. "I did not know Craig would bring Marcus and Tony. I did not know it would turn into a kidnapping, but I knew I had to stand up for myself. And in doing that, I ended up saving you." "Saving me?" Jessica said. "I went to trial. I was convicted. But you did not go to prison," I said. "You kept your children. You got a second chance. If I had just given you the money that night, what would have happened? Craig would have gambled it away. You would have been back in debt within months. And those kids would have grown up thinking that lying and stealing and using people was normal. Instead, they are growing up seeing their mother work hard, be honest, and build a real life." Jessica covered her face with her hands. "I am so ashamed." "Shame is useful if it leads to change," I said. "But do not let it destroy you. Use it to build something better." She lowered her hands and looked at me. "What I did to you, Dad, I can never make up for it. Never." "You do not have to make up for it," I said. "You just have to be better going forward. Be a good mother. Be an honest person. Teach Emma and Dylan what really matters in life. That is how you make amends." We sat in silence for a while. Then Jessica asked, "What did you learn from all of this?" I thought about the question. "I learned that money reveals who people really are," I said. "When you saw my Mercedes on Facebook, you did not see your father's hard work or his success. You saw an opportunity. You saw a way out of your problems. But here is the thing, Jenny. Real wealth is not in a bank account. Real wealth is who you are when everything else is stripped away. When you lose the house, and the cars, and the fancy dinners, what is left? That is your true value." Jessica nodded slowly. "I also learned," I continued, "that forgiveness is not about the other person, it is about you. For 8 years, I carried anger and hurt because you cut me out of your life. That anger was eating me alive. When I chose to forgive you, to help you, I was not doing it because you deserved it. I was doing it because I deserved peace." Jessica wiped her eyes. "You are a better man than I ever gave you credit for." "I am just a man who loves his daughter," I said, "and his grandchildren." Emma poked her head out of the bedroom. "Grandpa, can you read to me?" I smiled. "Of course, sweetheart." As I read to Emma that night, with Dylan building, with blocks nearby, and Jessica cleaning up the kitchen, I felt something I had not felt in years: contentment. My life was not perfect. I was still alone in many ways. But I had my family back. Not the family I had lost, but a new one. A real one. Over the following months, I continued to be part of their lives. I took Dylan to his first baseball game. I taught Emma how to plant flowers in the small patch of dirt outside their apartment. I helped Jessica study for her real estate license exam, a new career path she was pursuing. Slowly, we built routines and traditions. Sunday dinners became a regular thing. Birthdays were celebrated with homemade cakes and simple gifts. One evening, as I was leaving their apartment, Jessica walked me to the car. "Dad," she said, "I just want you to know. What you did, coming to that dinner, refusing to be manipulated, standing up for yourself, it saved my life." I know that sounds dramatic, but it is true. If you had just given Craig the money, I would still be living that lie. I would still be with him. And eventually, it would have destroyed me and the kids. "I am glad I could help," I said. "You did more than help," she replied. "You showed me what real strength looks like. It is not about money or power or control. It is about standing up for what is right, even when it is hard. Even when it costs you something." I hugged her. "You are going to be okay, Jenny. You and the kids. You are going to be just fine." As I drove home that night, through the familiar streets of Austin, past the places where I had built my life, I thought about the journey I had been on, the pain of the divorce, the grief of losing my daughter, the loneliness of those 8 years, the terror of that night at Jessica's house, the heartbreak of testifying against her in court, and now, the slow, careful rebuilding of our relationship. It had not been easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is, but it had been worth it. I parked in my driveway and walked into my quiet house. It was the same house I had lived in for 12 years, modest and simple, but it felt different now. It felt less empty. Because I knew that across town, there were 3 people who loved me, 3 people who were part of my life, 3 people I would see again in a few days. I sat in my recliner and thought about the surprise I had brought to that dinner. It was not money. It was integrity. It was the refusal to be a victim. It was the courage to face danger and do what was right. And it was the wisdom to choose forgiveness over revenge. Those things, I had learned, were worth more than all the money in the world. I thought about Jessica's question. What did you learn? I had given her an answer, but there was more. I learned that family is complicated, that people make terrible mistakes. That betrayal cuts deep, but I also learned that redemption is possible, that second chances are real, that love, real love, does not give up. As I sat there in the quiet of my home, I felt grateful. Grateful for the pain that had taught me strength. Grateful for the betrayal that had taught me forgiveness. Grateful for the loss that had taught me what truly mattered. My daughter had called me after 8 years of silence and demanded $300,000. I came with a surprise, not the one she expected, but the one she needed. I came with truth. I came with courage. I came with the refusal to be used. And in doing that, I gave her the greatest gift a father can give. I gave her a chance to become who she was meant to be. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Have you ever had to choose between revenge and forgiveness? What would you have done in my situation? Would you have given the money? Would you have turned your daughter into the police? Or would you have found a different path, like I did? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspective. And if this story touched you, if it made you think about your own family and your own choices, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real life, about pain and healing, about the complicated journey we all walk. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is struggling with family issues, or betrayal, or forgiveness. Maybe it will help them the way telling it has helped me. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope you walk away from this with something valuable. Maybe a new perspective. Maybe a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is always a choice. We can choose to be victims, or we can choose to be survivors. We can choose hate, or we can choose love. May you find the courage to stand up for yourself when you need to. May you find the strength to forgive when it is time. And may you always remember that the best surprises in life are not things we give, but the people we choose to become. Take care of yourselves and your families. Until next time.